When I was 21, I transferred to a college in San Francisco. I checked out a room for rent on Craigslist. It was in a really nice 2-bedroom apartment. It was cheap rent and close to campus, so it was the ideal spot. The girl who lived there was 29 and her name was Beth. She was tall and wide. She had jet black hair and wore pale makeup. She seemed nice, although a little quiet. But she seemed to like me and agreed to let me move in. So far, so good. My first night there, we went out for pizza, and that's when I could tell that something was a little bit off with her. Throughout dinner, she kept telling me how much I looked like Shia LaBeouf. I didn't know what to say, so I just shrugged it off with, thanks? I mean, I looked nothing like Shia LaBeouf, so it just didn't make any sense to me. When we got back home, she asked if I had seen her room yet. I said no, and she took me to see it. Her walls were covered in posters of Shia LaBeouf. She even had printed out photos of him all over her mirror. She owned all his movies. I didn't know what to make of it. It was creepy. The whole night she'd been saying I looked like him, and now it's obvious to me that she's obsessed with this guy. A few weeks passed, and I never really saw her that much. We didn't spend any time together, really. She would come home from work and practically run to her room. She would spend the whole night in there. She had this creepy high-pitched giggle. I would hear her giggling through the walls at night. I wondered what the hell she could possibly be doing. Occasionally she would come out and talk for like 2 minutes, and she would always be slurring her words, so I suspected she was drinking a lot. Sometimes she wouldn't say anything, and she would just stand in the hallway and watch me in the living room. I would turn and see her and be surprised and say, hello, Beth. And then there would be this long, awkward pause, and she would give her creepy, high-pitched giggle. It was uncomfortable being around her, and she gave me the chills. One night I woke up around 2 a.m. because I heard what sounded like the front door being unlocked. I came out of my bedroom, and all the lights were off, but I could still see Beth standing at the front door. She had her face against it, and she was turning the lock back and forth over and over again. And every time she turned the bolt, she mumbled my name. Max Barker, Max Barker, Max Barker. Seeing her standing in the dark and mumbling my name really freaked me out. And it doesn't help that she kind of looks like a bigger version of the girl from The Ring. I just quietly went back to my room and tried to sleep. One night I was watching Gladiator and she stumbled out of her room and turned on the living room light, forcing me to pause the movie, which was annoying. She then asked if I wanted to hear about her ex-boyfriend. It was an uneasy segue into the topic, but I just said sure and then awkwardly sat back to listen to her. 10 minutes into her story, she was so riled up. She was screaming at the top of her lungs about their breakup. I was worried that the neighbors were going to call the cops, and she wasn't listening to me when I asked her to lower the volume. Amidst all of her screaming, one thing that she said really freaked me out. She was in such a fit and yelled, "I'll slit his fucking throat." That was a big game changer. Suddenly I had no idea what this girl was capable of. She was practically a stranger, and everything I had seen was becoming alarmingly disturbing. After a few more minutes, she told me thanks for listening and started doing her giggle. I got out of there pretty fast and went to my room to go to sleep. I had a pretty unsettling feeling about being in the house with her, and what's worse is there was no lock on my bedroom door. I pushed the edge of my dresser in front of it to act as a little barricade. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of my dresser scraping against the floor. Beth was pushing the door open. I turned on my light, shouting at her to stop. I could see her through the opening of the door. She was so drunk and had this insane look in her eyes. I pushed the door closed and yelled at her to go to bed. I could hear her walk back to her room, but I couldn't fall back asleep. The next morning when I went out into the hallway, my heart dropped. I saw one of her steak knives was on the floor by my door. I got goosebumps all over my arms. All I could think about was her saying she would slit that guy's throat. I confronted her about it and she said she didn't remember trying to push my door open. She said she didn't even remember telling me about her ex. I had enough. My lease was a month to month, so I found a new spot and moved out. About a month after I moved out, she contacted me. I was at the movies and my phone was off. When I got out, I turned my phone on, and to my shock, I received about 40 plus text messages that she had sent over the past 2 hours. They were all just insane texts that ranged from everything between "Hi, how are you?" to "I fucking hate you." It was insane. I didn't respond and I never heard from her again. I always wonder if I hadn't set my dresser in front of my door, would she have quietly come into my room and slit my throat? Yeah, it freaks me out. A couple of years ago when I was pregnant, this lady was selling a brand new in-the-box Mamaroo swing for a super discounted price. So I email her and she says she still has it, but to text her. I go ahead and text her, but I was still working while I was pregnant, so I couldn't go pick it up immediately. She texts me again asking how pregnant I am, what the sex is, blah blah blah. A little personal, but I didn't think it was a huge deal because she was pregnant as well. I went ahead and told her it was a boy. I was actually due 2 days ago, but apparently he's too happy to come out. Then like 20 minutes later, she texts me again saying she has to get rid of this swing ASAP, so I can meet her at her house as soon as she gets home today. It actually wasn't that far out of the way, so whatever. However, I then get called into a meeting. I was still working, so I couldn't make it. So I asked my mom to stop by when she got out of work and grab it for me. The time comes, my mom gets out of work and heads over there. She gets to the house on the very end of a street with no neighbors around. She rings the doorbell, and this lady is like, "I'm sorry, I can't find the swing. I'm looking now. Come on in." My mom walks in and is texting me like, "Didn't you say this lady was pregnant and had kids?" Because she's not pregnant and there are no kids in sight. Plus, this house is filthy and there is no electricity on. Red flags galore. Finally, the lady is like, "Oh, I found it. It's in this back room. Can you come help me grab it from the shelf?" My mom followed her to the back room, and all it is just this dirty mattress laying on the floor with a bunch of towels on it. At this point, the lady, who is clearly not pregnant, makes a joke about how many pregnant women does it take to get a swing down. My mom is a larger woman, and she corrects the lady. "Oh, I'm not pregnant. You were talking to my daughter, but she had to go to a meeting." The lady is appalled that I did not tell her some random woman was coming, even though she's never met me. Anyway, she ended up being wrong about finding the swing in the closet in that room, and my mom told me she'd text me when she found it. My mom just went and bought the Mamaroo at full price and told me to block that lady. I always wonder what would have happened to me if I went out there myself. I honestly think she intended to kidnap me and steal my baby. So my fiance and I have been on the lookout for a kitten to accompany our 3-month-old kitten we have already. We searched and searched until one day he said to me, "Let's look on Craigslist." We found the perfect one, but the only problem was it was 2.5 hours away from our home. I inquired about it around 10:30 p.m. I know it was late, but I almost immediately got a response. She sounded very nice over text and asked to see where I live so that she could feel better about the kitten living with us. She also insisted on coming to our house. I know, I should have just dropped it at that. But at the time, I thought nothing of it. So I just sent them a video and we set up a time for the next day to meet. The next day came. I wasn't going to take my fiance, but he insisted on coming with me because he wanted to be my protection just in case, since Craigslist is sketchy. As we were on our way, I was texting this girl letting her know that we would be on time. She responded, "Great, see you then." We arrived to the home, me in the driver's seat and my fiance in the passenger seat with the window down. I texted the girl and got no response. I called, got no response. I ended up calling 5 times and texting in the course of an hour with no response. I went up to the house and knocked on the door. Nothing. There was a car in the driveway, but no response came from the number or the door. We got there at 6:30 and waited until almost 8. Nothing. The neighbor came out and was asking what was wrong. I said I'm here since I inquired about a kitten, and she said, "A kitten?" I said yes, it was on a Craigslist ad. She said, "No one has kittens in this home though." I showed her the ad and she said, "Oh, I know them. They're very sketchy people and I don't think they own any cats. I just helped them move their furniture yesterday." So I said, "Well, on their ad it says they have to get rid of their kittens since their new place doesn't allow pets." The neighbor said, "That's impossible. I have a dog and so does the next door over." I immediately found this creepy and assumed the neighbor was also in on something. So I thanked her and left along with my fiance. Literally immediately when we pulled out of the street, I got a text from the girl saying, "I'm just now getting your messages. Something must be wrong with my phone. Do you still want the kitten or no?" I didn't answer and we headed back home. What I don't understand is they didn't get any money from me, but they asked me to show up, not knowing I'd be with my fiance. I had a bad feeling about it. What did they want from me?